Hey guys, Jeff from Home Renovision, and I'm up in my master bedroom today, and I've got an awesome project. It's all about how to build a feature wall. I'm telling you right now, if you go with something that looks like natural stone, if it's a natural occurring product, it's timeless. We're gonna create this accent wall. We're gonna go with porcelain tile. You're gonna go floor to ceiling, and we're gonna make it absolutely amazing. And then I picked the most difficult tile project available to do this wall, so I can walk you through all the processes of layout and design and your strategy and how to measure, how to start it, how to finish it, and how to make it so that you don't have any lippage. I'm in an 1880 farmhouse. This wall has got bends and curves and everything else. We're gonna go through all my tips and tricks on how to tile a wall so you can be like a tile pro when you go work on your project at home. That way you can impress all your friends and family, all right? Listen, let's just get right into this because I'm gonna show you what I'm talking about when I'm talking about the challenges of working in a room like this. One of them, right out of the gate, is I've got weird doors in the room, right? And my center point on this wall is not center of what you see. It's a little off center. So when I'm laying out this design, I've got to try to make sure that I get that illusion of space. Way up here in the corner, I've got a peak on each side, and that is almost 8 feet wide. Now my tile is 1 foot by 4 foot long, and I'm going horizontal, so I'm gonna have an 8 foot wide wall. And I've got to be close to those corners because that dimension there is only 93 inches. I've got to be close enough to the corners that if I want to cheat a little bit one way or the other, it still looks centered on the room, which is going to be really crucial. Other things I've got to deal with today is I've got light switches and plugs. Check this out. That's right, I got a bow wall. Lovely. But there are ways that you can get around that. And I'm just going to let you know that if you're going to go with tile, the rule of thumb is simple. The bigger the tile, the more difficult the install. I know in the back of your head, you might be thinking the complete opposite. It's like, well, there's less pieces to put on the wall. But you have to think about tile as it doesn't have any flexibility. So when you install it, you got to install it flush, right? Flush can be hard to do if you don't start flush. So we're going to go through the process and show you all the tips and tricks, how the cheats, so that you can make it look flush if it's not, or you can build it flush if you need to. The other thing we're dealing with, of course, is, well, it's pretty straight. This part of the wall bends in a little bit. That's going to be not a problem because with tile, you can always backfill the tile and add more cement. We'll get into that later. But the other challenge we have, and this is the biggest issue. Let me just show you this real quick. There's the tile. All right, this is not the finished side, but when you measure, and I'm going in horizontal, that tile, man, that is just 11 and 11/16. Yeah, we have to measure with the 16ths because today we're gonna go with a 1/16 grout space. Now here's the thing. If I had exactly 8 feet floor to ceiling, and if this tile with a 1/8 spacer was exactly 8 feet, I'm laughing. If it's a little short, I can go to 1/8 of a spacer because you can increase your grout line in order to fill the bigger space. But because I need a full 1/4 of an inch, I'm not going with 1/4 inch grout line. I'm not trying to make it look like it was done back in 1950. I'm trying to go modern, so we need thin, which means that I'm gonna have, because this is 8 feet 1 inch, old house, right? This is what I'm dealing with. So I got an extra inch on top. I'm gonna end up with almost 2 inches of extra space over the course of the wall because this is a 1/4 inch shy and it's gonna be 8 rows high. So let me just throw that on the wall. All right, so on this channel, you know I like to talk about the end from the beginning, right? You need to know where you're going in order to get there and have a successful job. So let's just draw this out. This is roughly what my tile job is gonna look like. There we go, okay. That's really horrible because it's a rectangle, but it's actually gonna be 8 by 8 feet. Don't be too hard on me. But here's the thing, here's the floor, and here's the ceiling. And I've got 1 inch of extra space and 2 inches of extra space. Now, like I said, if I put in 1/4 inch grout line, I can stretch that so it goes top to bottom, but that'll look ugly. So what we're gonna do instead is we're gonna keep in mind, I have 2 options here. I can cut the first tile in half, right? And I can put in like a half tile and then finish with the small piece up top. That'll look nasty. Or I can design this so that my ceiling is where the tile finishes, okay? And down here, I've got my 3 inches. All right, now I've got a 6-inch baseboard, and if I cut the baseboard around the tile after the fact, it's going to look just fine, and here's why. This feature wall is actually designed to have a cabinet in front of it. So all of a sudden, having that tile not make it all the way to the floor is not a real big issue. You're going to find when you go out to buy stone and tile that almost everything is designed for 8 or 9 foot walls, okay? Small tile for kitchen is designed for the 18 inches between the upper and lower cabinets, and tile on walls is designed for an 8 or a 9 foot wall. If you have any variation in that, you're gonna have to get creative. So what we're gonna do is we're gonna do the math from the ceiling down, and we're gonna install a nailing strip to put our tile on. And I'm just grabbing a piece of doorstop, okay? We're gonna throw a laser level line on the wall. We're gonna install this 3 inches off the ground. But instead of 3, I'm gonna go with 2 3/4 inches. Because I've done the math, and I know that this side is actually a little shorter than this side, all right? So I'm gonna have a grout line up at the top. And I know that if I give myself an extra 1/4 inch mercy, when I get up to about the 5th row, if I need to, because I can measure as I go, if I need to, I can go from 1/16 to 1/8 of a spacer, because as soon as you start looking up, a little thicker grout line looks just as thin as everything else, okay? It's a little trick of the eye you can use. So if you're wondering about how am I gonna manage and compensate if my math is a little wrong, giving yourself a little bit extra mercy at the beginning is the secret to success. I picked up a box of these. These are little spacers, all right? They come as a kit, and they're designed for making the surface level. We'll get into that in a minute. But they come with a wedge, and that wedge right there allows you to manipulate the tile. So you can go from 1/8 to a 16th or somewhere in between. You can manipulate the tile just a little bit, especially over a large space, to end up flush at the ceiling. There have options because the cement usually has the bonding power, if you buy the good stuff, to hold it to the wall and still move around on the wall for a good hour or 2. So when you get after the first half is done, you make a fresh batch of cement for the second half of the wall, and then you've got all the time and flexibility to really mess around and make sure everything is just perfect before it all sets up on you. That's money in the bank. All right, so let's take that information that we've got all sorted out here. We know that there's a stud in this wall. Here we go. This is a great way to measure from the top down. Now there's my 8-foot mark. And I know I got 8 rows of tile. They're gonna be a 1/4 inch shy of the 12 inch. And so times 2 is 94 inch, right? And we're gonna go a 1/4 inch mercy. And there's my spot. Now I'm using these monster screws. Put it right there on the spot. Now that'll carry the weight just fine. I'm gonna resist the temptation to put a long screw all the way in the wall. You never know where the electrical is hiding. Every once in a while, someone will do something creative. It'll just wreck your day. Okay, now we're gonna go level on this and put the bubble right on top of the screw. I'm gonna pick my spot until I'm perfectly happy with it. I'm gonna hold it with my one hand. Okay. And then I'm gonna quickly draw a reference line here. Okay. Now it's just about finding the other studs. Now in an old house, it's easy. You can actually look under the drywall and you can see them. I'll show you. There's no bottom plate. There it is. So you can just, that's where the stud is. That's too much fun actually when you think about it. It's not uncommon in a lot of tile applications on walls that we'll actually use a starter strip like that. Any bathroom that's not a wet area, we always use a starter strip because we don't have a waterproof membrane that we're compromising. So this is a great way to start. If you're doing another kind of bathroom project and you're hanging wall tile, you can measure off the ground to the height of the first tile. Put in a starter strip like this so that it can carry the weight of the stone. And then the next day you can always add the bottom row. Piece of cake. So real quick, before we get into the project, I'm going to show you all the tools and materials you're going to need, and then that'll be like a little shopping list for you if you're going to pull something like this off at home. Okay, first of all, you need 2 pails. One to mix your cement, and of course one with full of clean water, and you're going to want a new sponge, all right? That's so you can keep things clean as you go. The biggest mistake that everybody makes with tiling, especially on the internet, you see it every time, is they have all kinds of cement in between all of the grout lines, and then they have to try to clean that out after the fact before they grout. Maddening, all right? I'm going to show you how to avoid that most common mistake so that you don't risk chipping your stone while you're cleaning out the cement. Nobody ever shows that mistake, but I'm telling you right now, 90% of the tile projects done on the internet have all got chipped tile because they had to clean the cement after the fact. It's just the way it is. You need measuring tape, knife, and here's the wedge system I was talking about. Now, I picked this up not because it's my favorite, but because it's available at the local Home Depot. I know a lot of folks, especially in the residential world, you're not going to go down to the tile supplier to get your materials, and you don't mind paying 2, 3, 4, 5 times as much to get the same stuff at the Home Depot because it's convenient. So here's how this works. It's a wedge, the tile goes in between the two, and the flat part goes on the bottom. And the more you force this together, the more compression there is underneath behind the stone. And that helps get rid of the lippage. We'll show you that as well. And if you aren't going to invest in that kind of system, I'm also going to show you how to just work with regular spacers. This is a 1/16 spacer. Read the package, nice and simple. You can use this as well. And there are pros and cons to using the wedge system for sure to get a professional look. But if you're not allergic to blood, sweat, and tears and really making this a labor of love, I'll show you how to use this as well. You're going to want to get a rubber mallet. And the reason for this is large format tile, you're going to be trying to compress and collapse the ridges on that cement. And if you don't have something to put pressure on properly, like a rubber mallet, you're going to have a hard time getting a good bond, okay? You just can't manipulate that much cement behind one big stone unless you got one. So make sure you don't pass that part up. Once we get into this, you'll see how valuable it is. You're going to need a mask. I got so many of these laying around left over from COVID. I'm going to be using these for a while. It's just to keep the cement dust out of my lungs while I'm mixing. I'm old and I don't like going up and down the stairs a lot, so I'm going to mix in the house, and so that is going to be the level of protection I'm using today. Also need a laser level. This is basic. It does a straight across and a straight up line. Nice and simple. You can always go to our Amazon store to get all these tools and materials you're going to need. Click the video link below and you can go and check that out. All right. Also, before we get started, if you're interested in seeing us do like a geometric shape feature wall made out of wood and paint, I'm humming and hawing about doing it because the whole world is doing it. But if you want to get my take on it, I think I got a few tips and tricks up my sleeve that might be helpful. Let me know in the comments section what kind of feature wall and what kind of shapes you're looking for. Be interested to hear your comments on that, okay? Cheers. All right. We are going to do a little bit of cutting because I've got to cut around my electrical plugs. So you're going to need a grinder with a ceramic, no, porcelain tile blade, okay? Don't cheap out and get the $6 one. You're going to need about a $40 blade for this project. If you're going to buy really good tile, you need a really good blade. Just can't have one without the other. So before we mix cement, I'm going to just show you this. We have to have a center line because as soon as we mix cement, I'm ready to go, baby. So let's get this done. This line here, my laser line, goes right up to my peak. Like I said before, the peak is almost 8 feet wide. So I need to have my tile coming to about here. I don't want it too close to this switch. Let's just go right on that line. All right, then we're going to go 47 inches from there. And this is a great way to make that work. There's my center line. I'm just going to bring my laser level over. That's all I need. Because once I get my first couple tiles on, I'll just keep following out corner to corner. Remember, I purchased rectified porcelain here, so every tile is exactly the same size. There's no variation. Be careful when you're shopping for stone or tile. If they can have up to a 1/4 inch variation in both dimensions, right? The width and the length. So be careful for that. If you want to install simple and have it look perfect, then you got to buy good stone. Might mean an extra couple bucks a square foot, but we're talking about 64 square feet. And do you want to waste 4 or 5 hours of your life trying to fix everything up perfect when $40 would have solved that problem? Me neither. All right, guys, so here's my cement mixer. This is what it looks like. It's really simple. It's not like the same as the drywall mud mixer, okay? Get one of these, and then we're gonna wanna make about a half a bag of cement, and that takes about that much water. Don't ask me how I know. Just been doing tile for a long time. The pail is full to about here, about 2.5 inches. And if you start there and you put in a little bit of cement and mix it up, you're allowed, when you're mixing cement, to mix it and add a little bit more cement or more water till you get to the consistency you want, as long as you don't let it sit for 10 or 15 minutes. But once you let it sit, the curing starts happening, and then adding water cement after that fact is a no-no, okay? So make sure you get it the way you want it right away. I'm gonna go through what cement should look like right now. Well, here's it for the rest of the power tools. It's my slow mixer. I use this for drywall mud and cement and thin set. All right, there you go. If you don't have one of these, you could use a regular chuck drive drill. Just make sure you're mixing small batches. You don't want to overwork the drill, okay? Yeah, here we go. Now, this is my thin set I'm using today. There's no such thing as the right bag of cement for an interior wall in a dry area, okay? So you can get the cheapest stuff you can find. They sell a bag of cement for 15 bucks at the tile supply store. Just Google tile supply wholesalers. I think it's from Richard. This one's probably about a $25 bag, but if you go to Home Depot, it's 45 and up. The stuff from Schluter, all set. It's a brilliant cement. It's meant to handle every situation and every situation possible known to mankind, but that stuff's $65 to $80 a bag. So you get what you pay for, but in this situation, we don't need a whole lot of science. We just need something that's gonna bond and dry. So let's not get into the comments section about, I should have picked a better cement. Yeah, that's true. Generally, I like to use ultralight for interior walls like this, but because I had some cement left over from the patio job, I'm just using what I have. It's not gonna hurt anybody. Oh yeah, I'm not even wearing my mask. That's brilliant, eh? Oh, look at all that dangerous toxin, yeah! For everybody who wants me to live another 5 years to continue making videos for you guys, this is for you. Right away, I'm way too soupy, and that's okay. I'm just throwing another couple handfuls. And now I'm way too dry. And the way you know this is, you want it to be, what's the right consistency here? Somewhere in between pancake batter and Cool Whip. Because once we're done mixing, we're gonna let it sit for 10 minutes so it sets up. Okay, and that's the point where it's gonna have a little bit of stiffness. Once I get this way I like it, we'll bring the camera right into the pail and I'll demonstrate what you're looking for, okay? So you can see as I'm mixing this that it's peaking up, okay, kind of like Cool Whip. Once it starts peaking up, that's a good indication that you're ready to go. It all sagged down, but after 10 minutes of setting up, when I put it on with the trowel, it'll actually hold itself in shape. And that's perfect because you want it to be able to hold itself in ridges until you use the tile and collapse the ridges with your own pressure. Here's a pro tip for you. I threw my laser level where my tile's gonna finish. Now I'm gonna just mark about 1 inch in from that. That's where I want my cement to finish. Once I get the first row on, it's real easy to work and build. But for right now, I wanna make sure I don't have any of the cement squeezing out past that line. Just makes sense, right? We'll do that to both sides to get started. That's my center line. My tile's 47 inches, and it takes me to here. And so I want to come to here with my mud. So you can see how these peaks are kind of flattened out. Watch this, how stiff this has gotten. So that still feels nice and soft, right? So what I'm recommending with wall tile when it's this size, like anything over 12 by 12, you're gonna want it's a 1/4 inch wide on the tooth, 3/8 deep and a 1/4 inch wide again, okay? That's the size you use. The other option would be go to 1/2 by 1/2 by 1/2. All right, that's another option. Usually we use that on floors. For walls, it's not as necessary. And there's a couple of rules here. If it's in a dry area, you can only need 80% coverage on the stone, and we'll talk about that in a minute as well. Like, stick with this. There's a lot of technical information I'm gonna get you. I mean, I'm almost done building this thing, but there's a lot of technical stuff to come still. And so with 80% adhesion, basically means if you got a good grab here, 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 and here, and here, you're okay, right? So the wall having a lot of movement isn't gonna really affect your day. So I was gonna show you what we're gonna see. When we put it on the wall, we're gonna get this. And these ridges are what we're gonna have collapsing when we push the stone on. Because it's ridging and holding its shape, I know it's ready to be used. So now all that's left is to stick the stuff on the wall. The secret to doing this is getting it on the wall without getting it all over the place, all right? Less is more. It generally holds its shape, right? So if you go like this, lay that down there. We're only going one stone, which is 12 inches, or 11 3/4 if you're really paying attention. All right? We don't need a whole lot of cement here yet. Now, in the world of tile enthusiasts, they will tell you that there are rules about which way the lines should go. So when you're collapsing your ridges, might I suggest, the rules are a little bit stupid. They came up with these rules long before they had large format tile. The basic idea is that the way that you draw the line is, that's the way that air escapes when you're collapsing the tile, okay? And so they always tell you to leave the groove running on the shortest way of the tile. So if your tile is 6 inches by a foot long, you go on the short side, because that'll work. If it's 12 by 12, pick a side, it doesn't matter, they'll both work. If it's 12 by 24, all of a sudden, they want you to go, it makes no damn difference, to be honest with you. And if you have a problem with my opinion on that, then go ahead and get as technical and scientific as you like, but just stupid. I like to go horizontal when I'm installing horizontal. Because when I'm installing horizontal, I like to set my tile in and then collapse the ridges up and away. All right? And so that's why I do it this way. And you may not like my method, but it has served me really well over my career. That is cement on the wall. Doesn't look like much, but if it's flat, you're fine. Now, since there's no such thing as a flat wall, I'm going to suggest that we have an option here. One is to back butter the tile, which means you take the straight edge of the trowel and you use it to apply a thin layer of cement on the tile itself, like buttering toast, which is where they got the concept from. All right. And what this does, wherever the tile makes any contact with that cement on the wall at all, even in the smallest, barely touched it, just, it's gonna bond, okay? And that is the goal. So now we're gonna take our big stone here, we're gonna set it on our wood, yeah, we're gonna slap it on. And that's good. There we go, we're almost done. Now let's take a look at this and we'll see what kind of bond we get, all right? There we go. You'll see I got great bond on that side, great bond on that side, not so much in the middle, because the wall's not flat. Let's throw some ridges on that part of the tile. Okay, there we go. Now, this is the secret for not having cement in your grout lines. Remove it. I know, it's such a trick. Make sure the tile is clean, all right? Top and bottom. One of the benefits of the ridges that we created is it makes room for these tile spacers to be installed, okay? Once you've cleaned, you can put in these spacers. This is how you do it. Always put the spacers once you're clean. Now you can put the spacers in after you've done the cement on the next row if you like. That's a good idea, but I just wanted to let you know, as long as the area is clean, these tabs will then break out nice. Because right here there's a weak spot. And when we take this off, we hit from this side, and it should just break. But if the whole thing is full of cement, then it's bonded to the cement as well as the back of the tab. And they don't break clean, and then people find themselves in there with knives trying to clean all that out. And that's how you run into trouble. Okay, let's do the next one. And we'll take a look at how well this wall is going to work for us for that joint in the middle. And then we'll talk about how we can fix that problem, if there is one. By the way, the trowel is 11 inches wide, so it's real easy to know how much cement you need. Okay, back to some butter. Open it up, help make sure you get your bond. All right, let's throw this one on. Now you don't want to cause any issue with damage here, so you want to have a nice gap over here, about 1/4 inch. And then you can close up to the other tile. Let's take a look at our bond. Yeah, I'm happy with that. There we go. Hey. Now the most important thing going on here right now is this joint. See, it's the only joint that we have at this moment. Okay. You want to put enough pressure on this joint that it pulls the tiles nice and flush together. You don't feel a ridge. 2 fingers and a thumb, like that. You'll get a handle on how much pressure it is that this works with. What's good and what's bad. You're gonna want one there, one in the middle, and the other side. You see the gap? Resist the temptation. You don't have to fill that with cement. Remember, we're looking for the 80% rule. All right, we're just gonna go with our next row. As soon as we measure this off with our laser level. So the actual height of the tile is irrelevant. We want to have the same distance to the laser line from each end of the stone. Okay, before we get going. That's how we know we're level. And I'm getting the line right on the tape measure itself. I'm not trying to read the line on the wall. I'm 14.5, just on the low side of that. I'm 14, and believe it, 1/4. Isn't that amazing? Okay, it's an easy fix. We're 1/4 inch out, but you can see here, I'm about 1/8 of an inch out. So what I'm going to do with this, raise that side a little bit, drive that screw in again. All right, let's measure that again. This time, 14.25 on the money. Perfect every time. So now I've got something that I can build on. That's going to be perfectly level. So here's a recap. So now we've got our first row. We've got our lines identified for the outside, our center line, we're perfectly level. We know that we've done the math. This should come out to be exactly 94 inches from the ceiling. Let's find out if we're there. On this side, it should say 94.25 actually, according to my measurements. Bam, 94.25. Okay, now I know that I've got exactly the right hole plus a little room for grout at the top. The other side, I think it's gonna be 94.1/8 because it was a little bit different height. Perfect, 94.1/16. But remember, with my grout line, I'm gonna be exactly 94 at the ceiling. So I'm gonna have a 1/16 to like 3/16, or sorry, 3/8 of a grout line. No, 3/16. Yeah, I like that better, which is perfect. So now we're gonna have to deal with how to level the tile as we go up with the horizontal because we're covering a bow, okay? That's a lot trickier than you think because we're going with horizontal lines. Whenever you have movement, if you have your tile, the long way is perpendicular to the bowed stud, the tile can follow the contour of the wall pretty good. So it's not that big of an issue. I mean, if it's really exaggerated, it'll look stupid if you stand right up to it. But you can always take some drywall off, cut the stud, push it in and throw in a screw, and that'll straighten it out for you. We also need edging, okay? Knowing the end from the beginning, I went out and I picked up some of this plastic edging. What this is a 3/8 edge, okay? And it goes over the edge of the stone like that. Because porcelain is not natural stone, it has a different color and texture than on the face. So this is used to cap it, all right? And that gives it a really nice clean look. It also gives you something up against the drywall that you can fill the gap in behind this, add a little bit of mud or a caulking and then paint it in and make everything look seamless, right? So what we're gonna do here, one of the reasons we wanted to leave some room here for the first stone so that this can slide in behind. Now, for the rest of this installation, I don't want it sliding in behind. Okay, I'm just gonna install that nice and long. I'm actually going to put this with cement. I'm going to trowel it in now from now on in. Okay, just a little bit to get it in position, and then I'm not going to have an issue. Okay, that's how we finish that edge. And of course, we've got to deal with our electrical plugs. This is why you need a grinder, because with a grinder you can cut any size hole anywhere, anytime, and usually in smaller holes, like 1 by 1 for plumbing fixtures. You can do that from the backside. You don't have to go and buy special diamond tip drill bits for your drill or anything like that. One grinder is a one-stop shop. You can tile anything with a grinder. If that's the only tool you have to tile with, a grinder can make every cut you're ever going to need. Guaranteed, okay? Or your money back, I don't know. Now, when dealing with your electrical, make sure your power is off, okay? And tape your screws while you're at it. There's always somebody that goes downstairs and goes, oh my God, the breaker's off, and gives it a flick because they're not thinking, right? So like, just do that. You pull it out, keep it horizontal, everything can slide over top. What we're gonna do is we're gonna measure the size of that box, okay? Including the screw holes, because remember, this is where the screw goes into that hole, and this should sit over top of the plate. But now it's going to sit over top of the tile. So we want to cut right at the top of that, where that hole is, so that the screw goes in. I'll show you in a minute. But ideally, measure from the stone, okay? And looking like 5 1/4 is perfect. And on the other side, 1 1/2 is perfect. Okay, so we got 1 1/4. I say 5 1/2. Oh, no. 5 1/8. 1 1/2. Wow. Measure twice, cut twice. All right. And then we also want to measure from here, coming across. That to me looks like 5 3/4. And then 7 7/8. There we go. So, I'll take my stone here. And I know it offends a lot of people when I call this stone, but my God, it sure feels like it when you're carrying it, doesn't it? Let's put on our left to right first, 5 3/4. Now I'm using a black marker. Not everybody should use a black marker on tile. Even a polished tile, it doesn't necessarily wash off, okay? So don't take it for granted. I'm quite comfortable with it though. So we're just gonna kind of draw that square, a little rectangle there. And remember, you've got options with cover plates. You can go standard size cover plate, which will cover it no problem. Or you can go with a king size plate, like an oversize. And even if you make a little bit of a mistake with your grinder, don't sweat it and get a new stone, okay? Just make sure you have oversized plates with you when you're working. You can always check the oversized plate versus the hole. Because when you install this, it goes left and right. It slides around on the screws. So you got a little bit of play there. It's not really a big issue. All right, that's that one. I figured before we grind, we might as well get the other measurement for the other one too. All right guys, I'm gonna go outside now and just cut my stone. Only takes a minute. Now, because there's so many different kinds of material and different kinds of cutting tools that are out there, if you want to do another research project, I did a video not too long ago, but all the different cutting tools for tile and different kinds of tile use what tool for. So you can check out the link for that in the video description. We'll throw a card up here as well for those of you who are on a device and you can actually click a card. Otherwise, I'm just going to go out and make a few quick cuts and let's get back to the install. Okay, here we are. We'll set it on the clips. All right. Make sure that you set the clips just before the tile in a clean joint. You won't ever get cement squishing out. And that is the ultimate problem that you're going to run into. Okay, we're just going to set them in place for now. We'll squeeze them all once we get the other tile, because you want to establish all of these. See, this tile here, this can be pounded in a little bit still. Don't forget, we have the rubber mallet for a reason. We have the ability for an hour or so to really play around and set all of our depth just perfect. So don't be afraid in too much of a hurry to say, oh, I got a clip, I'm gonna ramp it down, because you might be setting everything too close or too far off the wall. Get a couple rows in and always be tightening things up behind where you're working. You won't run into this issue. This is one of the most famous words ever spoken on HGTV. Back butter. Oh boy, oh boy, oh boy. If you know how to back butter, you must be a tiler. This takes the same skill as buttering toast. Does not make a tile trade pro. You can tell in a job like this that although it's not overly complicated, it is time consuming. And so if you're going to hire somebody to do a tile project for you, make sure you can afford to pay someone the amount of money that it's worth to get that project done, or just learn how to do it yourself. Because a good tile guy, don't be surprised if they're $150 or $200 an hour. It's not because they're making a fortune, it's because the cost of business is expensive. And let's make a bit of a mess on purpose here, hang on. Oh yeah, now it looks like every other homeowner, right? How do you clean that up, Jeff? How in the world? Okay, a couple quick issues here. This area, you're not gonna get any mud there with a trowel. So take it over to the tile, put a nice dollop. Take the heel and clean it out. Okay? Make sure you get all that extra cement out of the way. And get your sponge. And cement's messy. Every time you get something on your sponge, just clean it. Now take the edge of the sponge with your finger, okay? Right here. Problem solved. Now you can take your clips. You want to get two in behind here because sometimes, same thing. You don't want any cement in the way. Okay, push them in nice and flush down this way because that's a 1/16 spacer. If you have it raised up like that, you got the wrong size gap potentially, okay? Here we go. And we should put one for every foot, I think, hey Max? Why not? They're not expensive. All right, here we go. I think we're ready to roll. I'll take the tile now, set it on the clips. It's also nice because there's clips. It means you're not laying stone against stone and risking chipping the glaze. Okay, electrical, make sure there's a nice gap here so you can close. Clips in the way. Slide it over gentle. Okay, I'm gonna make sure that this gap is lined up perfectly. Something is wrong because this is opened up wider. So when in doubt, use one of these little spacer clips. Make sure it's in contact with the ceiling, behind the tile. That'll be enough to hold that in position for the next little while. You can put these in with your fingers just fine. Okay? You just put it against the edge. If you're not catching an edge, you know you're good. That's actually really good. Now, I have a little room to go closer to the wall up here. All right? Okay, the other thing you want to do, right here off the edge, well, I already have my first problem. Get the cement away from the edge. Now you want to use the clip, go in behind, and bring that nice and flush. Use as many as you need. That makes it perfect. This gap is easy to clean up afterwards, all right? You want to have no visible line here, okay? You don't want to have to rely on the grout to clean that up. So use the wedges and make it nice and snug. And if you need to cheat, and put some backer in there just to fill it up, so that when it's dry, it's not going anywhere, you can take a little bit of cement and finger that in here, okay? Just in a couple of spots, all right? Okay, there we go. So now we've got some backer. When it's all set up, it's not moving. Generally speaking, the rest of this won't be an issue. There's cement on it, so it'll make contact with the tile. Every time I stick in a wedge, it'll make it perfect. Now we just gotta do the whole rest of the wall. Piece of cake. Now, for people who don't want to spend $20 on the wedges and the clips, and you want to spend $6 on just the spacers, you can. I'll show you how to use them. Problem is, you're going to get lippage, but I'll show you how to use it anyway, just because. Now, the difference with these neck spacers, you don't have to be quite as meticulous while you're working, okay? And because you're not having anything in behind the tile. All you're doing with these spacers is setting them in place after you put the stone on. All right, so let's back butter a tile and I'll show you what I mean. I want to have to come up with a new phrase. Like there's not a home renovation show on the planet that doesn't use that phrase, and I don't know why. Now, in this case, you have to be more careful because you don't have the clips in place to protect the edge of the tile. So you got to use your fingers. Okay, got to get it in place. This is where it gets messy. You want to wash your stone before you open this up to put in the clips. And lift and stab. The danger here is as you're lifting, you're also putting pressure. And see, right away, this is in further than this one. So then, you have to be real careful to watch your lippage. That's it, all right? The next day, when that product is dry, just take a pair of pliers. You can grab it, even if it's buried in cement, and you can pull it straight out, okay? And so the one good thing about this system is it guarantees that you aren't gonna get big chunks of plastic stuck in your grout line that you have to remove because you can't grout otherwise. So there's a give and a go here. But I prefer to just work clean and use the tile leveling clip system, get a better result. Okay, well now that that's done, I think it's looking pretty damn fine. I'm gonna continue the video, but tomorrow we're gonna grout this thing in the video. Ooh, 3 notes. 1, work clean. I just did cement work all day long and I could go out for dinner. Clean your tools when you're finished at the end of every day. And I usually like to do it halfway through the day as well, okay? Because if you keep your tools clean, then you're not gonna be tempted to throw them in the garbage and waste your money. Secondly, if you live in some areas in this North American climate or around the world, you're gonna find the code requires you to use cement board as a backer, not drywall. Generally, that's the case in areas where they're prone to earthquakes. The problem with going with stone on a wall in an earthquake zone is that there's so much shaking that the paper delaminates off the drywall under the weight of the tile, okay? And so you don't want that crashing down and becoming part of the problem. So make sure you check out your codes. Other than that, we're gonna come back tomorrow. We're gonna use a grout. It's gonna be an unsanded grout. We're gonna get it done nice and quick. And then we're gonna be able to show you what this looks like when the feature wall is all finished. You know, and for those of you who aren't familiar with our channel, you know, my name's Jeff. We do a lot of renovations and remodeling projects on our channel. It's not just design aspects. So consider subscribing to the channel, hit the bell for notifications, and get in the comments section. Let us know who you are and the kind of projects you're working on, and ask questions, feel free. I'm in the comments section every day, and I love to help. Cheers. Okay, it's next day, boom, we're ready to roll. Now listen, just a word of warning. Whenever you're using a tile clip system, always give it 12 hours, bare minimum, to dry before you go removing it. Okay, you are exerting force and away from the wall as you take these things off. You don't wanna risk, if you didn't have good adhesion and the cement isn't quite cured yet, right? So just give it the time, don't be in a hurry, all right? It's not gonna kill you to leave this project and go to do something else and come back to this the next day. Anyway, now's the moment you've all been waiting for. You wanna know, how do we get rid of these clips? Well, there's 2 ways. One is with the rubber mallet. Let me demonstrate that way first. And remember, the way that this works is the clip is this way behind the tile. So to break that joint, you gotta go the opposite direction. You leave the yellow thing in there. It's actually part of your friend here. Oh, done. The reason you're using a rubber mallet is because you don't wanna mess up your tile, right? This won't destroy the glaze. And it's like ASMR, really. It's like therapeutic. Or if you don't want to go out and buy a rubber mallet, you can always use a tape measure. That works too, because it's got rubber edges on it and it's not going to mark the tile. So now we're going to see if I know what I'm doing, and if I continue to work clean, every single one of these should break out without leaving a tab behind. Now you remember we used a different system earlier in the tile, just use these little squares. See that? There's a lot of compression on this type of thing. You can't just pull it off with your finger. Dang nabbit. Now you can decide which system you'd rather use. All of these little yellow wedges here, they're perfectly useful again. So the next time you have a tile project, all you gotta do is go out and buy more of the clips, and you can reuse these wedges over and over and over and over again. So it actually becomes a lot more affordable than you thought. Now the next time you do a major tile project, you only gotta buy $10 worth of wedges, and you're right back in business. All right guys, so I'm at the store the other day and I'm looking at all the different grouts, and I was amazed to see that they're selling pre-mixed grout in this little bucket that's about this big. It's 30 bucks. So this box right here costs $20, and I'll be honest with you, it makes 4 times as much grout. So if you're only doing one tile project in your entire life, then maybe it makes sense. Get the premix. I've never worked with it. I have no interest in knowing. I just don't see the logic in buying something that's been sitting in a tub on a shelf for months at a time just to expose it to the air, and then it's going to be... Anyway, enough said. When you're mixing unsanded grout, it's incredibly sensitive. If you ever make pancake batter, you'd know. Like most guys who watch this channel, you know that your cooking skills are probably, at least you make pancakes once in a while. So it's just a little bit of water. And that's a lot. That'll probably make enough grout for the whole wall. Okay? And since you probably are not very proficient, I would suggest starting off with 3 parts powder, 1 part water. Okay? And you'll see what happens here. We're going to mix on slow. Now, that's still pretty soupy. I like it a little stiffer than that. So now what we do is we just work with like a little bit of a handful at a time. And if I got to add a little bit more water, what I'll end up doing is I'll take my sponge, right? And I'll just go like that. Because that's a lot of water when you're mixing grout. I know it's crazy. But remember, we have a 1/16 grout line. Not a whole lot of product needed for this job. Clean the tool. Now the reason that I'm a big fan of mixing your own grout, A, it's more economical, but B, if you've ever been to a big box store, you always see that lineup of people there that are doing returns. What you don't want is to have an experience where you've got a temperature sensitive material from a northern climate that froze during the winter and was returned in the spring. Because that happens. That'll ruin your whole job. Okay, what you'll end up with is you'll start working with it and it just won't cure. If you've ever seen the comments section in these videos, you'll see people go, you know, I tried that premix grout, it just wouldn't dry. That's because it was frozen once, changed the chemical composition, and now you're screwed because you got to wash all that out and then go about buy more of it. Now, if you live in the south, you aren't going to get frozen grout, so no big deal. But if you live in the north, grout and silicone, I just don't like buying pre-mixed. Like silicone is dangerous. I'll always open up a new box in the back of the shelf. I just don't trust the stores or the return policy. Why they allow people to return sensitive, weather sensitive materials to those stores in the first place is beyond me. I once had a job where the company I was working for, this is years ago, they actually supplied me with a silicone that had been in a bin in the shed. Well, they had a storage facility, but it had been frozen. So I finished this massive elaborate bathroom, pulled out this clear silicone, installed all the custom glass, did the rest of it, taped it up, secured it, came back the next day and it didn't set. This was a massive project And for $7, the client was outraged, right? $7, just not worth it. I'm telling you right now. What you're gonna need is a grout float. This is massive, by the way. This is for like doing an entire floor, but it's here and it's clean, so I'm gonna use it. There's not much to this. Like, let me just say, for the purpose of the video, you should always wash your tile first. Oh, just in case there's a little smudge here. Little smudge there. Yeah, I know. I'm going with a bone-colored grout, which is a brown. And so, my cement isn't brown. I actually had a little bit squeezed out there. So what you do is you just force that rag in there back and forth a few times. If you're working on your tile the next day, the cement will actually dissolve in the water and you can wipe it out. If you leave it for 48 hours though, you got to use a tool to clean, all right? So if you ever put on tile on a wall, always clean it the next day. Make sure it's in your plan to clean it the next day, because anything else can be disastrous. It's really hard to see this on camera, so I'll take it off first. And I use wood and shim for this. If you have a plastic spatula or something, it'll work too. You can see that, eh? Yeah. Okay, that's a wax coating. Usually comes off a hell of a lot easier than that. Holy cow. This here, it's on all four corners of the tile. When they put the tile in the box, they put back to front, back to front. And so in the assembly line, they actually have this protective wax applied to the face of the tile. Okay, so that the stone in the box during shipping and all the vibration and wiggling around isn't in contact with the glaze. It's just a millimeter, but it does the job. And it protects the stone during shipping. Okay, if it doesn't have something like this, they'll pack it glaze to glaze, back to back. But this is the most common way to do it when you're buying something that's quality. All right, so I'll go get the rest of this off and then we can grout. There we go. All right, this stuff is thick like peanut butter, okay? If it's any runnier than that, you're in trouble. Generally, because when you wash the tile, there's always a little water left behind. It helps make the application easier. So you don't want to have grout that's already runny, because as it picks up the water, it gets runnier. Now you want to grout right up against that plastic edge there, okay? It's always going to be a little bit of a bead, so make sure you do that. Once it's on the wall, you take the side, clean it. You got a nice ridge, you can force it in the top. Grout floats have two different corners on them. One is rounded, one is square. Inside corners like this, you want to use the rounded. You want it to actually go in convex, okay? And then after, while it's drying, it might shrink up a little bit, but that's fine, at least it'll still be full. And the goal here is to get a nice clean line that I can actually apply some clear silicone to afterwards. Okay, and that's it. Now, when that sets up, it's gonna look quite pretty. Yay. And I'll probably have to make a second batch just because this gap up here is so huge. It's gonna take a lot of this away. One of the benefits of having a lot of DIY skills is when you do something like this, if you don't like how much grout you see up there, before you put the silicone on, you can always come back and apply more drywall compound, okay? You can actually lower the ceiling to create a straight line, which is what I'm gonna do. My wife hates it when the joints at the ceiling aren't consistent. Happy wife, happy life, eh? Now, I want to clear one thing up because I see a lot of examples on the internet, especially on YouTube. People will do grouting jobs, right? And they're going to show you to use this on a 45-degree angle, right? To have the trowel open 45. But the truth is about the 45, it's not just the tool, it's the direction you attack the grout line. If you come straight across, you're going to trap air, okay? So you want to start like this and always on an angle across the joint. Go in two different directions if you need to. Once it's full, then you can run across and clean it out. Make sense? You can't just have the tool on 45, you actually got to apply it on a 45. You want to ridge that in. that motion forces the grout nice and deep into the gap. Okay? And that'll give you really good performance. There's nothing worse than finishing off a grout job, and then after it's drying, little air bubbles appear because all you got was a bit of grout on the surface because you trapped air, right? So this is how you avoid that. Boy, it's nice and hot up here on the ladder in the summertime, eh? Even with the air conditioning. Okay. So for anybody out there who's confused, why is Jeff using Polyblend from Home Depot? It was convenience. Like I told you before, Home Depot is just like a convenience store. And sometimes it's just convenient to go there, right? My favorite store is on the other side of town from where I live. I wasn't driving all the way across town just to get my favorite grout. So that one has a polymer modified grout application as well. So it's similar to the one I told you not to use in my other video. We'll link that in the video description. But because I'm dealing with cold water with my washing and with my mix, and there's not a lot of product here, I'm more than confident I can wash this before it sets up. I'm going ahead with it. But if you're a first timer, watch that video and then you can decide for yourself if you think it's worth it to use this polymer modified stuff. It has its advantages, but my goodness, if it's a hot day outside, you know, you could be in a lot of trouble, which is why I'm starting up here first, because it's a lot warmer in there, the ceiling in the summertime in Canada, even with air conditioning, right? So you just don't want to let this stuff get ahead of you. There, look at that, it's already working out great. So the first step here is just to polish it in, get rid of the excess. Whoop. All right, having excess grout on the tile, if it dries, is a real problem. So now I've worked it, I know I've got a few minutes. So now I'm clean, I'm gonna keep that convex curve with my finger and just get a nice grout line. Pretty, 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 pretty. All right, now when we're washing, we're gonna wash down. We're gonna flip the sponge over and wipe one more time. Don't touch it again. Okay, it's a damp rag, not one that's dripping. And you set it and forget it. Okay? Whatever's left on a glossy tile after that process, we'll wipe off later on. Okay? It's gonna be such a watered down version of whatever's on there. It's not worth trying to polish it off, okay? Let it all dry up. You can come back with a rag later and wipe it off. Haze is just haze unless it's epoxy. And it's not haze, it's still epoxy. That's the whole washing cycle right there. Okay, contrary to the grout line. All right, now we're in a situation here where we got opposing grout lines. All you need to know here is you wipe it off the same way you applied it. Okay, on a 45. Done. Piece of cake. Why is it every time I grout, I explain how to do it like Gordon Ramsay makes a burger? Bun on. Lettuce on. Here we go. So I'm just gonna do the next section, polish it. And be careful when you're polishing because you should be using a grout that's very similar in color to the actual stone. An area like this, you wanna make sure, oh, okay, that's the stone. Fine, I don't have any residue. If it's hot, resist the temptation to use a fan if you're using polymer. I know it'll feel more comfortable, but all you're gonna do is set everything up all that much faster. Sometimes it's just safer to sweat than it is to be comfortable. Now, we'll go to the top on the other side. You wanna wash in the same way that you applied it so that you have the same drying time. Try to keep things consistent. Here we are. Nice. I'm gonna put the sponge in the water. I'm actually squeezing it, forcing the sponge to excrete and then fill back up with water again. Get as much of this out of the product out of the sponge as you can. If when you're wiping, you see a lot of residue left behind, it's time to change your water, okay? You don't wanna do more than 50 or 60 square feet of any kind of product without changing the water. All right. Wax on, wax off, here we go. Okay, now guys, listen, just real quick. I know there's a lot of people out there showing you how to do custom carpentry, design elements, feature walls, but listen, here's the deal. the amount of tools it takes to do really good custom carpentry, you're probably looking at $3,000 to $4,000 in tools to do a good job. To be able to tile like a pro will cost you about 150 bucks. I'm just saying. If you take a look at the investment in tools, maybe 200. But if the investment in tools, and then the skill set is, can you apply mud to two surfaces and stick them together and use clips to make it perfect? Anybody in the world can make a feature wall with whatever pattern or size tile or texture or gloss. The options are endless. Just go to the local tile store, take a browse. You're gonna be blown away. Geometric shapes, no problem. You want linen texture, no problem. You want things that look like wood or things that look like stone, whatever you want to get. They have all of this at the tile store. The applications are always the same. Go with the skinny grout line, a little bit of blood, sweat, and tears. You can have a gorgeous feature wall for just a fraction of the cost of the tools it takes to learn how to do carpentry. Just saying. This tile here, pretty sure it was running around $7 a square foot. Okay, so it's expensive. But what have I got? 8 by 8, 64 square feet, right? So 64 times 7, 4, 5 tools, $700 all in, tools and material. You can do a feature wall at home. For $700, you can buy a decent chop saw so that you can do carpentry in a bedroom wall. But for the same 700 bucks, you can make a feature wall. Come on. This is the way of the future. Learn how to tile, and then you got a skill set that you can use to apply to every other renovation in your home. Start on a feature wall, gain some confidence, then tackle your bathroom project, okay? Don't do your bathroom until you've had some experience. This is a great place to start. Not a lot of cutting, but all of the basic skills are right here. And when you're done, you've got something amazing to put your bed up against. That is money in the bank. Now we're gonna show you the after project. There's not much left to do here. I'm gonna do a little bit of touch-ups. You can see over here, now that I'm done grouting, I'm gonna pull these out. I'm gonna wipe this up. I'm gonna get some drywall compound. I'm gonna fill the wall up to the plastics. I'm gonna level off that edge up there with some drywall compound. It's gonna be amazing. We're gonna show you the after projects when it's all done and all painted and all the baseboards installed. I hope you enjoyed this project. Remember, you're your best contractor and you can do this yourself. Now that's a feature wall, right? And remember this, when you go to the tile store, there's so many options out there. Any wall in your home can be a feature wall. You can do a hallway and have great texture. You can do the living room or the kitchen, round fireplaces. Anywhere that you have a wall, you can throw tile. And now you know how to do it. You can upgrade your home and maximize its value. Have a lot of fun with it. Now click over here and you can watch a ton of other videos. Don't forget to like the video and put your questions in the comment section. Cheers till next time.